Hey everybody, I'm Jody Vance.
And I'm George-Affleck.
And it's time for
Communications Breakdown. UnSpun.
Communications. Hello? Are you there?
Hello. The mayor, the whole parking on the streets, 43 communication staff couldn't get this. Cheers. What was this? The city of Vancouver. Let's talk about the city of Vancouver's parking plan.
Let's give the backstory here. It's important that people understand. Welcome, by the way, to UnSpun podcast.
Yes.
Following along on your social media, we left this too late last time, so we'll slide it in here. George _Affleck on Twitter, at Jody Vance on Twitter. You're obviously tuned into UnSpun podcast. You can follow along at UnSpun podcast on Twitter as well. The Orca.ca is where you hear and read great content. And you sign up for the fin there so that you get direct inbox. You can find UnSpun weekly in your email inbox if you just sign up for the fin, and they don't sell your information or anything. It's just a service for you. Okay, so we've got that all out the way.
And I'm at home today. My internet broke down at the office, and I call Shaw. We call Shaw, and they're like, "Yeah, we'll be there in a week."
What?
But I'm running a business, so we have no internet at the office. You're like, "I think we need you here before then." And so they say, "Well, maybe by Tuesday." You're like. So everybody had to go home. They don't know what's wrong. So I have to come home. Here I am at home in my closet office area.
You look a little bit like Dr. Evil when in that chair.
$1 billion.
$1 billion. Let's talk about the money, the cash grab, the show me the money platform that you were referencing there. This is that highly contentious, very controversial and steeped in public backlash plan that the city had. Do you like how I set that up? Because I know you're a fan of this.
Yeah. Well, I'm not a fan of it. I just think that...
I did that to poke you. Let me explain it, and then we'll get to it. Okay, so the city of Vancouver, in the interests of the climate emergency, having impact on the climate emergency, was going to implement permit parking on all city streets. That would then also require permits for those who were coming from elsewhere and parking on city streets overnight. You would have to
they do permit downtown, anywhere or most places.
Okay, so I'm just trying to explain. Right. Thanks.
I'm just ready to go here.
Okay, so basically, there was what you and I talked about this last week. It was coming to council. There was more conversation. There was public engagement. There were speakers, and it was coming to a head. We were going to find out whether or not this was going to be
very exciting
put into place. We talked about it last week that while there are merits to taking steps towards trying to manage how many cars are on the street and why and what kind of cars and and that it would perhaps bring much needed revenue, I guess, for City of Vancouver. There's really no line item in the budget that that's the thing that you and I come back to is like, if that was actually going to meaningfully impact climate change or the climate emergency in our city, okay. But there was really no discussion. The communication on that was flawed, George. So then we go into council. What happened? Yeah, I do. Tell us what happened.
And last week we talked about it. I think that there might have been more support for this if it was revenue neutral, much like the carbon tax, which was brought in, where Gordon Campbell said, "I'm bringing in this tax that will help the environment and reduce greenhouse gas emissions and incent, motivate businesses to find ways to be better environmentally, and then there are tax incentives to that, and so but also tax punishment for that. But revenue neutral meaning that the money we get from this cash grab, in this case the carbon tax would be then reduce the taxes overall. So for businesses, so there was a 1-for-1. In the case of Vancouver, I said this last week, and I said there was no revenue neutral model. This was a cash grab, even though it was a cash grab, but also it did meet the criteria that this council had set out, which was we are in a climate emergency. We need to come up with solutions. Staff gave direction to staff. You need to come up with solutions to deal with our climate emergency. So this was one of their solutions. Except they didn't find that neutrality to the issue, and that's why it became so controversial. I think it would have been hard. It would have been an easy sell if they made it neutral. And I think as the vote happened last night, it came down, interestingly, to the mayor's held the balance of power. And he voted against it. He decided that this, was not the right approach. That he had listened to people, and so he sided with the NPA, kind of wherever the hell they are, the various parties and independents and blah 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 blah, versus
blah,
Green
blah.
versus Green Cope One City. So, 6-5 voted it down. This would have been $60 million over 4 years in revenue, by the way.
Wow.
New revenue that when you look at, for every $7 million, that's 1% of a tax increase. So if you think about it, 60 million, if you spread that over 4 years, it's about 15 million. So about 2% taxes per year that they would have gained. The mayor has also put a motion forward previously about a 5% max tax increase. So this would have given staff an ability to win a 2% window of revenue that they wouldn't have to worry about finding, and now they don't have that money. So now they got to find that money that they probably were hoping would pass. They thought they'd get the mayor's support because he's all about the environment, right? But apparently not. So very interesting. I think communication. That's my kind of little thing at the beginning. This was a communications breakdown from the beginning. People were confused. It's not as bad as what people think. It's just people are mad. They look at the $1,000 thing. They don't think about the $45 thing. They don't think about the $5 thing. They think about the $1,000 thing. And generally, it was a cash grab for sure. But be honest about that. And say, yes, it's going to solve it's going to deal with our environment stuff. It's going to tick that box. And we desperately need the money. And this is a way to share the pain of finding revenue to pay for operations of our city. And be honest about it if you're going to take money from people. They weren't.
What I was doing when looking down for those who are watching here is I was finding the statement, Mayor Kennedy-Stewart's statement following the council's defeat of citywide parking permit and vehicle charge proposal. Today at council, we heard from staff and dozens of residents on the proposed citywide permit parking system that would have seen new fees for overnight street parking and up to $1,000 in special levies on all but the most efficient 2023 and newer vehicles. I decided to vote against this proposal after hearing from speakers and giving careful consideration to the staff report. The climate emergency is disproportionately impacting middle and low-income families. I saw this firsthand in my many years fighting the TMX pipeline expansion through unceded Indigenous lands. I believe in strong and urgent climate action, but I also believe these actions must be just. I think most of us living in Vancouver share these values. Unfortunately, the proposed permit parking system did not meet this test. It goes on and 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 on.
But in an ad campaign in the next election, that's not going to come out. What's going to come out is this mayor voted in lockstep with the NPA. He proved his fear of the establishment in the city, and that's if I was going against him and I was on center left or something, this was gold. This is gold.
Right. Well, it's a relief for.
He chickened out. Chickened out.
That's the ad.
I think.
That's the ad.
Chicken out. It's a picture of the mayor in a chicken suit. There we go. There's an ad.
There you go. There's a gift from Curve Communications a la George Affleck. Pretty much shot down.
I think it's been done before, by the way.
I kind of felt like I was being punked. I kind of felt like, if we were gonna get to the point where the mayor was just gonna vote against it, why did we spend all the money on this whole process? The money, the uproar. I feel like it was like, it's kind of like when they do the property tax, it's going to be 12%. And everybody goes 12%. And then they come in at 8.5%. And we're all whoo, dodged a bullet. But if they'd come in at 8.5%, it would have been like, what do you mean 8.5%? Right? Like I feel like we're being managed in a way that's like, there's only one taxpayer. Yeah. Obviously, the coffers are not as full as they once were, obviously, with COVID-19, with the lower instances of land transfer taxes, et cetera. The corporate development money that was flowing in very richly for so long that, as you've pointed out, like that money should be put aside. We're going to need it. And it was just spend, and the ballooning budget. And, now we're staring down again. We didn't get a chance to speak to last week. We went a little bit over just trying to get to the crime that's happening, all over this city. I'm noticing all over my neighborhood that I've grown up in, there's more graffiti here than I've ever seen before.
And of course, we've talked about this a few times. Did you see this morning? It's Thursday, and this morning the police announced that they wouldn't be pressing charges against the person that harassed the mayor. And the mayor said, "Well, that's the way it goes." He felt harassed. He called the cops. The cops came, but they said there was nothing really value. There was no ability to charge this person. So the mayor himself has felt he lives downtown. He lives a couple blocks from where I live. It's there, it's everywhere, but I don't get the sense this council's taking that stuff seriously at all, like not as a whole. And you see the boarded up windows, the smashed windows, the graffiti. You see it everywhere. If you live in Yaletown, West End, or downtown, or Gastown, you see it every day. And even where my office is in Mount Pleasant, it's really bad. There's beautiful murals that were done as part of the mural festival that are being destroyed by graffiti. It's the irony. Hey guys, this is actually for you. You can be involved and get money for your graffiti work, but no, got to tag this and ruin it. But you have to be diligent. And I don't get the sense that this council understands the importance of diligence when it comes to dealing with petty crime and petty, then smash windows. I mean, the police said they're going to increase patrols, move some staff around, but they're also trying to say we don't have enough money to do all the stuff because so you're cutting our budgets, and it's like here we go again. So, and they're in budget mode right now. So,
and you said budgets, you guarantee with this. You said last week, if this parking thing doesn't go through, guarantee that we're going to see less street cleaning, less attention to the garbage cleanup, like the things that the de-evolution of Vancouver in particular is just so startling, especially when you get out just beyond the city limits and you see how other jurisdictions are being managed with far better efficiency.
Certain ones,
yeah.
Certain
well,
ones.
I mean, I'm hard pressed to find one that borders on Vancouver that doesn't look better just by crossing the boundary. It really does, and it's like just in garbage pickup alone, just in overflowing garbage cans. We've got fewer and farther between. So people will recycle and be more mindful with their garbage. No, they're just chucking it in the ivy in front of my house.
And
I go into my garden and
I'll explain this financially one more time for those who are interested in geek stuff about budgeting. But basically, the engineering department, which is in charge of street cleaning and all that stuff, it's in there. It's part of their mandate. But also, the engineering relies mostly on pay-as-you-go revenue. And so, so parking is one revenue model for them, but they also water and all those things. So they get pay as you go. We've pushed for more of a pay as you go kind of structure because it does create control of use of water and all those things. And a lot of that is also determined by the metro rates. But when you have a department that relies on pay as you go, the one thing that doesn't rely on pay as you go is street cleaning, garbage pickup, because it's a cost. And so if you ask the engineering department to cut their costs, they can't. If they cut pay as you go, they can't cut you pay as you go because it's pay as you go. You pay, you get it. But if you want to pick up garbage, that's a money loser. There's no revenue model for that. And so if you want to save money in a department, the first thing you cut are the things that cost money that don't make any money. And that's, of course, street cleaning, garbage pickup, sidewalks, anything really, and this is the entire park board structure is to a certain degree on that side. Is pay as you go. A lot of it, they get to make a lot of money, but they've had their operating budget cut over the years. So the basics of things like gardening, flowers, they are in charge of our trees across the city, our medians in the streets. They get neglected because their budgets get cut just by attrition. It's just because they have to, because there's nowhere else to cut.
But they cut the cars going into Stanley Park, and they get the revenue from the parking.
Yes, well, that's just bad management overall. Yeah, there's an example. There's an example of pay as you go. You cut your pay as you go. Now you're really in trouble because you're not only making people mad, you're also cutting an easy revenue source. So going back to the parking fiasco this past week, and this decision, this $60 million potential cash grab. Would have gone to engineering and could have been used for a whole bunch of things. So if you had said, if I had been a communications person, the report that I would have presented would have been, we're going to be making all this money, but here's specifically what we're going to do with that money.
Yes.
We're going to do
that would have made
$10 million is going to sidewalks. $5 million is going to bike lanes.
Yeah.
$5 million is going to the park board to deal with our trees, whatever. Like, I don't care. thing, and if it goes up, that money will always go to that, and we're locking it in. So even if it's an increase, people, I think, are open to spending more money if it's for the right thing. So if you say we have to, yeah, and so this direct relationship between taxes and costs is a very makes people happy.
But you've nailed it with, I don't trust this municipal government to do the right thing with the cash that they grab from my pocket, because there's no transparency in it. They keep saying, oh, it's all there. It's all there. No, it's not. It's not. It's not there. And it all feels like a campaign sell. And I think there are a lot of people who feel like I do. If I saw cleaner streets, and if I saw, safer streets, if I saw some meaningful action being taken on these really important pieces of city living, and Vancouver city living specifically, I would be like, hey, you know what? I'm one of those people who can afford a bit more. I'm glad to pay more, so that those who don't have as much might be safer, have a cleaner environment, and more opportunity. And for those, I mean, the fact that we're still talking about cuts out of sidewalks so people with physical disabilities can get around, I can't believe we're still talking about those.
In general, that there's the amount of people who walk in Vancouver is 3 times that cycle. And yet we despair. And I, I don't get into a bike lane debate, but when you talk about volume of traffic, I mean, walking, this is a walkable city. It's hard to bike around here 24/7, 365 days a year, but easy. We all can walk, and we all know if you're a true Vancouverite, you know how to get around without actually even having an umbrella. If you're a true Vancouverite,
I just took my first Uber, random. Oh, my very first. Yeah, it went quite well. You brought up park board. I just want to plunk this in there with the whole, we have announced
what did I do? Okay.
No, I know, but we've announced the $500 fine for people feeding the animals.
Oh, yes.
Right? Mm-hmm. And that includes birds, which, for the dude sitting on the bench down at Lost Lagoon feeding the ducks as he has every day for 25 years, maybe a sign first before... the easy, because out at the Rifle Bird Sanctuary, I saw this on Twitter, and I got inundated, because out there you actually buy bird seed to feed the birds at the sanctuary while you're walking around. So some people who are visiting might go there and then feel it's okay to feed the birds in Stanley Park. And so I think we need to put the signage before the implementation.
That's all they can do, because they don't have enough staff to actually find people. You're going to see the odd, one that will be high profile. But generally, there's big fines for dog poop in our parks. And do you ever see a person get fined for letting their dog poo in a playground, which I've experienced directly in my life as a parent in Yaletown? We're like, can you not have your dog shit on this? On the playground? And they're like, and you get in these fights with people. You're like, why is this even a discussion?
I have, however, had my dog's license checked, and it was expired, and I was given a $200 fine.
Really? Oh, wow. Okay.
Super random. And he had a license. I just didn't know it had expired, whatever. Let's talk about some other things. Speaking of licenses and passports, proof of whatever. The vaccine mandates that we are seeing coming in, and you predicted long ago that you see these coming, and it's the only way we're going to get back to some sense of normalcy. And we are seeing that on a federal level, federal workers now being mandated, and any travel to get on an airplane or a train.
Complicated.
It's going to be, can you talk a little bit about your experience with this?
Yeah, well, I'm doing a trip, and 2 trips that have been arranged for a while. It's very stressful. The process. It's almost like, I'm not even going to bother this. I don't want to do this again until everything's back to normal, because there's all these tests you got to do going, and they cost money, and it's private sector tests. So it's totally random. The rates, it's anywhere from $49 to $100. These are COVID tests, $150, $179. Like, so you got to shop around, and then coming back, Canada's actually even more strict than leaving. You have to have all these tests. There's tests. You got to do your app. You got to fill out all these forms. You got to make sure you don't do it too soon before you leave. It's super stressful. Everything, even booking, getting on the plane, and going through the check-in process. Because I just did it. It's super complicated and more. They've added 4 steps, and it's not clear, and you push a button and you've done something wrong. No, I don't understand what's happening. And there's 3 other forms you have to fill out, and it's crazy. And I have, not even at the airport yet.
Yeah.
So it's definitely something that's confusing. And then, depending on where you're going, they have different, you got to make sure you understand what's going on in those communities. If it's a family trip or it's a business, it's quite the thing. And obviously for good reason.
Yeah.
But it's also okay, maybe this is the new normal. I mean, I think that COVID's here to stay until people get vaccinated. And I thought that Christian Freeland made this very clear. We have a solution, people.
Yeah.
Our Minister of Finance this week, who got up and talked about this and mandating she said, we have a solution, everybody. If you just, we're at 81% nationally or whatever we are, double dose.
81.7.
If we can get to 90% like Denmark, we're done.
We lift everything.
Move on with our lives.
Yeah.
But of course, neighboring countries like U.S., they'll never get to 90%. It looks like ever.
No. They're what are they at 63? Are they 63?
Yeah, so this disease is going to just continue.
No, 53.
Right, so what's going to happen? It's going to morph into who knows what.
Horrible.
I mean,
okay, so
anyways.
Just talking about, I think it's a really good point. See, I traveled within Canada because I flew to Montreal with Al Jazeera English to cover the federal election. Very easy to travel within the country. What you're talking about is crossing any border, the cost associated with the testing, getting the testing done and being like, well, even double vaccinated, am I good? Like, I got friends who have tested positive for COVID. Yeah.
Oh,
and
yeah.
they're double vaccinated.
And they can't travel now for at least 3 months outside of Canada, really.
That's right. That's right.
And
so now,
just the whole confusion over AstraZeneca and the mixed doses. I heard Claire Newell on Mike Smith, and I thought she was really good, actually. And
she's very good.
I was like, Mike, are you listening? Because she actually said the way it's written, this is going in the States, it says, something like extenuating circumstances or something, but then she read the details of that. Basically, you could say in my country, this vaccine is accepted, and then they say that's enough to say if your country accepts this vaccine and your double dose, then you'll be fine. Because in America, they were saying in November you have to be double dosed to go to America. And the way she read the actual policy, and she read it out and was reading it, and it seemed pretty clear. So I think it made me. Not that I'm traveling to America in November, but it's like, I think it's fairly clear that it should be fine if you're double dosed on AstraZeneca or whatever, or any mixed dose.
Or even the mixed dose. And that's what Dr. Henry said at her briefing earlier this week. And I read a little bit more in behind sort of, she said, everybody just needs to be patient. The science is there. You just need everybody to catch up, and there's a lot going on. But when the land border reopens, which was the first time I've heard those words in a row, certainly it's a federal issue, not a provincial thing for us to be. But
she talks to the gang.
She is exactly very involved.
The country.
Exactly. So we're seeing the ask there for those, because I get a lot of messages from people going, I got AstraZeneca and Moderna. What does that mean for me? It means you're fully immunized, and the likelihood of you getting severe illness or dying are very slim, and you did the right thing in taking the first opportunity to get immunized. And then the rest will catch up. Traveling right now is really still really weird, as you just mentioned, and can be very expensive. And for those who are going to do it, my parents are like, we're snowbirds. They live half the year down in Palm Springs, and they've made the decision, we're going. They both have that dual citizenship because my stepdad's married. Long story long. But they are like, you know what? We're ready. We feel confident because we're fully immunized. Therefore, we're going, period.
In California,
they're going to start living.
Yeah, in California's regulations are very similar to here. So it's not a big stretch. I think Palm Springs specifically is very exactly like here. It is, from what I understand. So it's I think we have we're used to the process now. So if you're in a different place, it's sunnier, great. But it is stressful. It is a process. Yeah. Get in the pool. It is a process. It is stressful. So if you don't like stress of travel, I would say hold off for a bit till things get a bit less stressful. But
let's talk about this.
I've traveled to third world countries and been in crazy places, and this is actually probably the most stressful I've ever had. Really, to travel, like all the things you have to think about.
I want to squeeze in the school here because talking about stress, the stress in the school system for some teachers and administrators, certainly there's that rising stress level and the want for mandatory vaccines throughout the school system. I don't really understand why the teachers union doesn't just mandate it for teachers, and that the schools just don't make it so. It feels like they keep asking Dr. Henry to do it when Dr. Henry keeps pushing back, just like Site C, right? BC Hydro, you want Site C to stop being a problem? Mandatory vaccines for the people, because so many at Site C are from Alberta, right? Whole different story in Alberta. So there's that. We're moving ever closer to it. What I do think is a positive is how Dr. Henry was talking about Thanksgiving and gathering around Thanksgiving, keeping it small, keeping it vaccinated only, coming to your groups, and really speaking directly to those who are making the choice now to not be vaccinated, and how the medical exemption is such a sliver of that. That she kind of gave it the like, okay, well, you definitely get to make your choice to not be vaccinated, but you will then not have the ability to do many things. So in my column this week, I did the math on that. Did you see my column this week? You've been very busy.
Yes. Yeah. No, the math to Christmas. Yes.
If you want to be fully immunized by Christmas, you have to have your first dose by Remembrance Day.
Otherwise, you're not welcome at my house or your house.
No, I had a girlfriend of mine who lives out in the valley. Her husband's vaccinated, her kids are vaccinated, grown kids, and she wasn't for whatever reason. And I had invited her and her husband to dinner, and she was like, "Oh, I just so you know, I'm not vaccinated." I'm like, "Well, then, I'm sorry, but we can't do dinner until you are." And I said, "Can I ask why?" And she said, "This and that, and I'm just not ready." And I said, "Okay." And I've known her since I was a kid. And I said, "Listen, I would never steer you wrong. I'm telling you I wouldn't. So I'm not going to put pressure on you. But if you have any questions, let me know." Long story long and a back and forth. She 2 days ago sent me a picture of a little sticker on her shoulder. And I said, "I will see you in 39 days. I will make you dinner." And she's like, "Looking forward to it." And she's like, "I feel great." And I don't know why I waited so long. So
she made the right decision, unlike the prime minister of our country who decided to go to Tofino.
What? Tell me, what did you see there? Vacationing in British Columbia.
On a day that we had a day off, but we were supposed to be what? Well, I mean, what we were supposed to, it wasn't very clear what we were supposed to do, but we were supposed to be thoughtful at least.
The first day for Truth and Reconciliation, like we're honoring. It's a somber day of learning. Why wasn't he in Kamloops? Why did the Prime Minister not go to Kamloops?
It's unbelievable to me. And, in elected office, I remember Mike Howell from what is now the Vancouver's Awesome did a piece on selfies in front of the cenotaphs for Remembrance Day, and how tacky that was. And I always thought so too. I thought, it's like, that there are certain days and things you do as a politician that you should do and should not do. And to be so dumb, I don't know what was he thinking?
Tone deaf.
You just go half an hour flying in a helicopter, fly out, then somebody sees you at Tofino, you're like, "All good, buddy, you did your thing, and now of course you need a vacation and relax with your young kids, and of course, but you can't do something on a first version of this that you created and just like, I'm just going to go and hang out in Tofino." Not cool, and unbelievable that he's been in politics long enough to know that is not a move that he thought he wouldn't get caught. I mean, come on, we all have phones. He's a pretty obvious looking person. We all know what he looks like. I don't understand it. It's just arrogance. He doesn't care. He apologized afterwards, but you're sort of like, what kind of brain makes you decide that that's a smart move? It's bizarre to me. Bizarre. I don't care what political party you are. It makes no sense.
It makes no sense. And there was one pundit who said perhaps he didn't go to Kamloops because he might be challenged then about the Human Rights Tribunal ruling of 2 years ago, where victims, but the victims of the lack of care when put into foster care and what have you, and why he's fighting those in court. Like, is he trying to dodge something that's not dodgeable? Like that.
Well, or he could have just done something in Tofino. That's it. I had this trip planned 6 months ago or whatever.
Yeah.
I'm going to be here. I'm going to go join this, whatever, and there was probably something happening on the island that he could have gone to, for half an hour, get some, visuals.
But you said it. He could have flown in, flown out. I mean, the Kamloops Residential School is literally right next to the Kamloops Airport, and Tofino has an airstrip that flies in, flies out. You could be in Kamloops in 45 minutes.
Yeah, private plane cost our taxpayers. He could even pay it himself for a couple $1,000. He'd be in and out, job done, back from lunch. I mean, literally, his wife and kids wouldn't even know he was gone. So, but nope.
Seriously.
Anyways,
nope. They should just listen to us, George.
Unspun.
Why don't they listen to us, George? Say goodbye.
Bye. We'll see you next week.
I'll check in with you from your travel destination. Good luck with that, buddy.
Thanks. See you later.